I'm so excited for today's guest. We interviewed Amy Wine. She's the founder of Amy Wine and Company, where she empowers elite, high-achieving married entrepreneurs overcome overwhelm in their life, relationships, and business. And one of my favorite things we got to talk about is entrepreneurship with your spouse. But not only that, if you are married and you are the crazy entrepreneur doing big things, the risk taker, but maybe you are with somebody who is not an entrepreneur, who loves the stable 9 to 5, which there's nothing wrong with that. Amy really gave some practical advice from her own life, as well as like how to navigate those conversations, what systems to put into place so that you and your partner can be supported at the same time.
All right. We got another episode of the Rainmaker family. We got Amy Wine on. Amy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this with you guys.
We met Amy through a mutual mastermind we are both in, and I just heard over and over like good things about Amy and the work she does around coaching, mindset, marriage, business, entrepreneurship. So if you're in business, you're entrepreneurial, you're married, any of these things, this is going to be an awesome episode for you. Amy, I want to kind of rewind it back because I don't know, were you always entrepreneurial as a kid or did this come on later in life? I know reading your story a little bit, you kind of took that leap of faith at some point into the world of entrepreneurship, but bring us back. Like, what was your first entrepreneurial venture?
I would have said for many, many years, I was not entrepreneurial. I just wanted to be a teacher and that was it. However, when I go back and look, and I've had somebody ask me this before, in high school, I was very good on the computer. So I created this thing. It was for Valentine's Day where you could get your love match and it went to charity. So I had them do a little survey. I put it in my little database I built, charged them $2, and you could figure out who your love match was, right? Based on other people's answers. And I found something, I've not even said this to anybody before, but I found something a few months ago going back through old high school stuff from years ago. And I was voted the most likely to build a database for the U.S. Postal Service.
Wow.
Interesting one. I didn't know that was a category, you know?
I didn't either. But I think that it's always kind of been there. It's just nothing I ever thought about. Like the word entrepreneur or being a business owner was not something I would have called myself until maybe even in the last 5 years. And I've owned several businesses.
Yeah. So from high school, what was next? You said teaching?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm a late bloomer. I had too many jobs before that. I flunked out in my first year of college. I had a wild 1 year. I met my husband at 19 and did that thing for a while. I worked a ton of temporary jobs. I've done HR, I've done visas, immigration. I've done so many things. Went to school at night. Owned a scrapbook store for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've done so many things.
Yeah.
But I really had that teacher thing still in the back of my mind. And as I kind of grew up and had kids, I was still going to school, but I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. And I was always interested in that. And then I did eventually go be a teacher for a couple of years. In the second year of that, I was like, I really just want to talk to your kids and not teach them to read, and decided that was not going to be the best teacher. And I went back to grad school to become a counselor. So now I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm also a licensed professional counselor and opened my own counseling center. It scaled, did the entrepreneur thing again. But what I really realized was I had no idea what I was doing in a business. Even though I'd owned a scrapbook store before, I have no clue what I'm doing. So we scaled so fast. We hit 7 figures in 11 months. I thought it was going to be me and 2 other people. And that was it. So at that time, I was like, I better be figuring this out before I go broke, not knowing what I'm doing or how to lead all these people, because we ended up from 1,000 square feet to 8,000 in 3 years.
Wow.
3 counselors to 50. So I feel like it was that pivotal moment that kind of changed me to where I am now. Is I found Michael Hyatt, and at the time he had a business accelerator program, and I remember having the call and bawling my eyes out, and the sales guy was really good. And he's like, reflecting back, you're so overwhelmed. You
Yeah.
don't have time for your kids. Like all the things I was feeling and thinking. But our motto is when it works, succeed in life. And I'm like, yes, I want that.
Yeah.
And I joined. And that's where I kind of learned to run the business side of it. And eventually, about within 6 years of that, I ended up actually coaching for Michael while I was still at the counseling center. So now I have 2 businesses, and then I started online, and now I've got 3. And then I wasn't really winning again.
Yeah.
I sold the counseling center, which seems really counterintuitive. Like maybe she can't make up her mind or something.
Yeah.
But I became a leader of all the people, and I wasn't doing what I love, which was working with people and helping them in their life, their marriage, their business. And I love the business coaching part too. And I wanted to wrap them all up. So I sold the counseling center 2 years ago, went all in online, holistically. And
Yeah.
I love it.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
But I love
Yeah.
it.
I feel like you hit these kind of almost resistance points, right? We like to call this the trim the vine moments where the fruit kind of stops growing, right? It's like the vine is overextended and you got to trim back, or you have to like optimize almost, right? Or cut some things to actually grow fruit in the next season. And way to go, because you just continually did that, even though that's like kind of the scary thing that doesn't make sense, right? It's like, no, keep the cash cow over here. This is your stable security. Don't just go off on the internet. And I know I've met John. He was in like a small group with me. We were in a mastermind, and they roped all the spouses in, if whether they're entrepreneurial or not. And John got roped in, and I would say he leans a little not entrepreneurial by default.
Very
And you,
not.
so what was he thinking during all this? I think it'd be cool to hear you talk about that. And because we have a lot of moms in our community who are, I'm the crazy entrepreneur, and my husband does not get it. So talk us through that.
Yeah. And it's something I talk about a lot now, and especially to that entrepreneur. And it's because of my experience. And the mastermind we were in really highlighted that he was not entrepreneurial. He does, and he will say, I do not understand the mindset. I don't understand the risk taking. I don't like it. Like, I think he wanted to run, but he just kept coming back because he was kind of forced in. And he ended up liking it. But no, he will say, like, I'm the 9-to-5er. I want the security of knowing that. And I'm like, but you can make so much more. Or you could do what you wanted to do all the time without somebody else telling you it. He freaked out because the counseling center thing came up almost overnight. So there was no word from me that I was walking away from millions of dollars to nothing, pretty much, right? Other than the one-on-one clients I already had. But I really didn't give him a choice, which in retrospect, I think it worked out well. But if we'd had that conversation, I'd probably still be sitting at the counseling center feeling unfulfilled and stuff. So I'm not saying don't talk to your spouse about it, but there is a better way of going about it. He doesn't get the risk taking. He's not a risk taker whatsoever. For us, and for a lot of people that I work with now, it's educating him on, why do I need this as a person? Like, what fulfills me about being an entrepreneur, running my own business? Why does the risk not bother me as much? But telling this, the best way to do that is to tell the story around it, right? And he understands the story of risk doesn't bother me, but it also comes from I had a lot of childhood trauma. And I always felt like I was caged in and everybody else was telling me what I should and shouldn't be or shouldn't do, or what I was capable of. And now I'm like, I don't want anybody telling me that. Because of it. And for him, he didn't have it. So his story is, his mom and dad both ran their own businesses though, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
They both had their own businesses his whole life. One's a veterinarian, one's a dance teacher. Now, he sees that as a normal, right? It's that entrepreneurial. He doesn't get the online entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
So I think for him telling me his story of why he wanted safety and security, like, that helped us a lot in that and going forward. But I've also learned, like, I do have to bring him in a little bit more. I just do it lightly, and there's no way I tell him everything now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to know. I mean, if he
Yeah.
did, he doesn't want to know. He kind of lets me do my own thing. As long as with the money that comes in, I am a little more conservative.
Mm.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Amy, I think you have such a unique perspective and place because not only are you entrepreneurial and such an incredible businesswoman, but then also you are so in tune in helping other high level entrepreneurs succeed as well. So it's like you're both the parts and you've built up a 7-figure business and sold it. Your husband probably at first was like, "What are you doing?" And now you actually have this unique perspective where you've actually lived out and continue to live out what you're helping other people as well that are experiencing that tension between one spouse who wants to be entrepreneurial and the other who doesn't. So I love how you broke it down with stories of just how that went for you and John. And I would just love to know, in coaching people and in counseling, like what are some of those like spouse tips that you can give like our audience as far as communicating, that communication that goes back and forth between the spouse who's like wants to be in the 9 to 5 and then the other spouse who's like, I'm going to go take risk and I'm going to dream and I'm going to build. Like, what are some of those maybe when you're first starting out? Like, what are those things to bring them in the conversation? And then I would love to know even like, what are those almost like, I see them as routine maintenance conversations or questions as you continue to build the business with your spouse in the picture as well.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that, but I got to go back a little bit. So one of the things I do with every single person that I either counseling with or coach with is I have something called the Thrive in Life Inventory Assessment. So I really feel you have to know yourself well enough to be able to go have the conversation with your spouse. And it measures you across 10 life domains. So it's physical health, marriage, emotional health, spiritual, financial, business, parenting. I don't remember them all off the top of my head. It measures you with under 10 minutes in those areas. And one of the things that helps do is pinpoint where you're strongest and where you're weakest, right? Because most people that go into entrepreneur are very high achieving. They're continual lifelong learners. They're very much growers. They want to know how to be successful in all 10 areas. They don't understand why they're not, because they usually feel successful in one or two, but like the other parts are failing.
Yeah.
And you go through seasons of life, right? So it depends on your season. Do you have small kids while you're building the business? Right? I did. Do you have teenagers? I'm empty nesting. It's a different story, right? So also have to figure out what season you're in. So one of the things that you have to do to manage the marriage and have the conversations is know where you're weak and where you're strong. And one of those weaker areas do you want to work on at a time? Because you can do everything, just not everything at once. And when you're building a business, it takes up a lot of time. It's not easy, right? There's hills and valleys, failures, successes, and you feel like you're on this constant roller coaster. But when you know where your strengths and weaknesses lie and where your focus is, that helps you move into the conversation with your spouse. So then you have a talking point. Hey, I've went through these 10 areas of my life. I've looked at them. You don't have to take my assessment to do it. You can just look at your life, right? And kind of know. And then these are the ones I want to work on. These are the ones I don't. I am a big fan of a weekly meeting. I have the non-entrepreneurial spouse say they feel like their spouse is trying to put them on a spreadsheet or in a business.
Yeah.
Right? But if you can reframe that as this is just our sync up meeting for the week, especially if you have kids still in the home, and you kind of have it outlined so everybody knows what to expect, right?
Yeah.
So this is the meeting where we look at the current week going in, who's doing what, who's responsible for what. I still do this with John because we're both working, and it's like we will come home and realize we have no food for dinner because nobody did it, because we didn't even have a conversation.
Yeah.
So it's like all of a sudden one week we're doing really good on that and cooking it all. And the next week we're having to order last minute every night. So if we have that meeting, what does it look like going forward? Where am I drained? Where do I have margin? So I think having those conversations and putting it around like, this is the one area I'm working on and I'm trying to find time. So let's say if I want to start the business, I'm moving forward with that. That's taking up my time. The kids are taking up my time. The marriage usually starts coming last. Well, if you let that happen and you don't have these little check-ins along the way, you're going to wake up 5 years from now and be a roommate and not even know how you got there. So it's learning. And if you're having the conversations, you're learning your calendars, right? And you can build an intentional, purposeful week, but every category in life can't be on it at the same time.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's huge. And then the other one is when you're having that conversation with them, it starts to naturally teach them what's important to you. It also starts to teach them the entrepreneurial mindset and be curious. That was a shift for me. Instead of John and me just rolling my eyes at him just not getting it, which I did do for a while, I started to get curious, but it wasn't working for me. So be curious about why it's bought. And for him, it's the unknown, the risk, maybe a little lack of control. And I get that's his stuff. And then I have my stuff. So it comes up in the meetings and you can come together on the differences.
Yeah.
And then go ahead. What, you have a question before I have one more thought?
Oh, I was just say this is so good, and I can't wait to hear that last one you're going with. But like Stephen and I started on, like we jumped right into entrepreneurship actually when we were engaged. Had no compass for, each other's skill sets, working environment, anything. And I just remember trying to pull Stephen to my side, being like, just be more like me, and like I would get so frustrated with him. And even like roles and responsibilities in the business was like kind of set up, but like not really. And I think just assessing your those domains in life and strong suits and weaknesses, regardless of if you're like, in our case, we were in business together, which you should be doing if you're in business with your spouse or any business partner, but then especially if you're not, and evaluating that for yourself too. So this is like so good. Amy, if I would have known you back then, you would have saved us so much heartache. So listeners, take this, take note, you can do this at any point, rather how long, it doesn't matter how long you've been in business or not. So I just want to say this is just so good, but go ahead. I want to hear this last point.
And it's funny because I'll come to my point that this will lead to my point. I tried to pull John into the business. Especially when we started that mastermind. I was like, he's retired right now. I got all kinds of things he can learn to do. I even went and looked at what his strengths were and made him take tests that he didn't want to take, like the strength finder and the goal beat. I'm like, you'd be great in operation. He had 0 interest in doing that. And I tried to force it, but then I was like, you know what? We probably won't last, because I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs that work with their spouse, and there's one key for that. So you have to be in your own lane. You guys have probably learned that. Like the way it works is you each have tasks and the other one does, and you're responsible for those. You're in your own lane, and the other one has to trust that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't going to trust him to do it. And nothing bad about him. That's just who I am. Like, he does not need to work with me. But it also made my other point very clear, is your yeses and nos. And it's something I had to work on, because I was saying yes to everyone and everything except for myself and my marriage. And I kept thinking, well, the marriage is fine. We've been together for decades, right? We'll be fine. That's not exactly true. If you don't feed it, it's not going to be fine. And when you've got kids at home and all these competing interests, it may, I hate to say, go down the list of priorities a little bit, but if it stays there, so people will get into that season and say, it's just a season. It's this next year I'm going to be busy. But make sure your season has a deadline, or that season grows forever. And then every yes you say has a no attached. So while I was saying yes to my business, I was saying no to me, and I was saying no to him. So physical health was taking a beating. The marriage was taking a beating, and I thought it was all for a good cause. But after I woke up a few years later and realized now I got to repair all these things, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I'm a big proponent of knowing where you're in those 10 domains. And it's something I do
Mhm.
every quarter. I do it with my one-on-one clients too. Every quarter, they're reassessing where are we growing,
Mhm.
where are we shifting anywhere. But every yes you have has a no attached.
Mhm.
So the no is often yourself or someone you love.
Mhm.
That helps you prioritize your everything, right? What are you doing?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
good. We talk all the time about the importance of finding who's for your to-dos so you can focus on your strengths. That's where Fiverr comes in. It's an affordable solution that can help you dip your toe into buying back your time. I'll never forget the first time I discovered Fiverr and realized I could have people help me in my business for as little as $5. Whether you need graphics, design, videos, animation, even music, voiceovers, or cute drawing of your family for an upcoming gift. Discovering Fiverr was a game changer. Head over to rainmakerfamily.com/deals to create your account and get your special hookup. Again, that's rainmakerfamily.com/deals. Amy, you said this earlier, and I think this is one that so many, like I've struggled with as a mom and business owner. And I know so many people in our community as well as, and I might butcher, you said it so well, and I'm going to try to remember to repeat it. But you said you can do everything, but just not all at once. And so can you break that down for me and what that looks like and how do we, find time and manage? Because, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are a mom, whether your kids are little or out of the house, but you're still mom. And you either have a business, you're in Rainmakers, or you have this desire, you're tinkering with something on the side. So those are already two big, huge things.
Yeah.
But and then, put in everything else if you're, the PTO mom or the soccer mom or, involved in your church. So can you break that down and share more about that and how to, switch from one hat to the other?
Yeah, and this is something I failed at miserably for many years. I was the PTO mom. I did the yearbook, which is like I was getting awards for 200 or 300 hours a year at the school. And I'm like, why am I getting this? Why am I doing that? And I was drowning, but I was doing what I thought I had to do for my kids. I was saying yes to everything they wanted to do, whether it was gymnastics or dance class or basketball or football or whatever that was. I was saying yes. And I got that times three. I was trying to say that I wanted to walk, and I would go in seasons of taking care of my physical health and walking around the neighborhood. But then that would fall off pretty fast the minute something else came in.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things started to shift. I started to ask, my kids were elementary when I started all this. And I started to ask them, is it important to you if mom reads to your class? One of my kids was like, yes. The other two were like, please don't come.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why am I? Is it important to you that I'm doing this yearbook? One of them said yes. The other two said no. Different kids. Is it important to you that I am there? I always made their sporting events, always did those things. But other stuff that I was just volunteering for, I had to make time to build the business. So then I had to decide what's going to be my yes and what's my no. So that was my filter with them. And it considerably went down to about 10 hours of volunteering at the school or going to kids' events at the school.
Yeah.
Other part was I was also women's leadership in church.
Mm.
And I decided for a year I was going to step back. And that wasn't easy. And I'm going to tell you, I lost a lot of friends saying no to that.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people were personally offended that I said no. And later I was like, but wait, you're not hearing me. I'm drowning. I think that you have to look at your list. So your calendar tells you everything you need to know about what you prioritize. So when you go take a look at your calendar, what are you saying yes to? And what are you saying no to? Is that where you should be in this season of life? Because you can't fully walk away from your kids. You can't walk away from the business you're building, and you can't walk away from your marriage. But can you shift some of those things? I started to where, like, my spiritual life is very important to me. But if I could get when my kids were small, if I could get 10 minutes a day, that was golden. And I may be in carpool while I'm doing, like, I learned to stack things, right? I'm carpooling and I'm doing God, like right there. I'm praying. I'm listening to my sermon, whatever it is, in those 10 minutes. Can I do time with my spouse once a month that is actually more interactive than thinking I have to have a weekly day? Because that's never been possible for me. And it works because you can connect more once a month and probably do once a week. The other one is, this was the hardest one. I had to put physical health back in. So that meant I had to take less per client at the counseling center. I had to learn to delegate some things. I had to get some help in areas with administration and things like that when you grow that more. Like, I had to learn. But here was the hardest. My daughter, my youngest, came home in 9th grade. And this was at the middle of the scale of the counseling center. Like, I'm working 60-hour week.
Yeah.
And she says, I want to do FFA, which, for those of you who don't know, it's Future Farmers of America.
Yes.
And I don't know how I raised a farmer, but she wanted to raise a pig. And I said, no, I draw the line at this. I'm not doing this. I cannot do this, because this now means somebody has to take her. We don't have a barn in our house. I live in the middle of Houston, Texas. Like, we don't have barns in our neighborhood. So the school has barns about 3 miles away, but that means she has to go every morning before school, which she already has to be at school at 7:10.
Yeah.
She has to go every evening, on weekends, rain, snow, sleet. Well, there's no real snow or anything. Sometimes we get ice, and we've had to go to the barn and ice. And I said, no, I can't. I cannot do this. She wailed, did all the things. I felt horrible. Like, because I'd always said yes to my kids on everything. And I said, do rabbits. You can do rabbits in the backyard. We'll figure it out. Like, we don't go to a barn. She's like, I don't want to do rabbits. I said, do horticulture. It's just plant.
Yeah.
No, she wanted a pig. And rabbits, I found, this is a funny side note, you have to get a male and a female and breed them, and you raise the babies, and it's the babies that go to the show. And I'm like, now we're talking 12 rabbits. That's a no.
Yeah.
And I told her, I was like, if you want to do this, then you're going to have to figure it out with your dad. I cannot. And at the time, he was going overseas all the time and he working. So he doesn't tell her no on anything. So he told her yes, but I had to hold that boundary for my own sanity, that I was not going to be the person going to and from the barn. And I know it sounds kind of hard, but it had to happen. I can tell you in retrospect, because she's getting ready to graduate college in a couple of weeks, and she's going to be an agriculture teacher.
Oh.
And for her, it was the best thing she ever did. But it was honestly the best thing that she and John did together.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because when I set that boundary and they kept trying to push it back, because I'm the mom that does everything. And I'm like, no. And I'm going to tell you, it costs some fight.
Yeah, that's powerful.
So it's, you got to pick those yeses and no's and still survive.
Yeah.
And if it's been me and he hadn't figured it out, it would have been a no. I did not do it.
Yeah. That's so good, Amy. I appreciate that real
powerful
life
story.
example, because so many moms, like, I mean, I'm hearing you and I hear that, like, oh, she did decide to do it. And I'm thinking, like, did you budge, Amy? Like, what happened? Did you have to give something else up? And no, you empowered her in a different way to figure it out almost. And it was really good for her. And it was really bonding with her dad. So I think so many women will relate with that. You said something early on that I want to talk about, because again, I felt this way, learning maturity and boundaries and knowing that, like, I'm going to disappoint people. I'm going to upset people. When you stepped away from, helping out at church, you said people were really offended and you lost friends over that. Yeah. How do you, with clients that are making decisions, whether it's, letting people go in their business or it's personal friends or family, setting those boundaries, how do you work through when someone else is offended at you and just being like, I know that this is what I'm supposed to do, but not everyone's going to agree or like that? Like, how do you work through that?
Initially, it really bothered me. I think there's a little bit of people pleasing going on with me. That I want everybody to be happy or see me in a certain way or a certain light and think highly of me. And when they don't, it like hits and I start to doubt and I start to think, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? And
Yeah.
that specific, and I lost my entire friend group.
Wow.
So I felt pushed out of the church. I felt not welcome. And that's a hard one to swallow, right? And then I wasn't able, when I said no to that, it was like, I try to keep going to some of the Bible studies, but when you don't feel really welcome and people don't talk to you anymore, it's like you're in the tundra, like you're just in the ice over there by yourself. It's hard. It makes you not want to do it again, right? Setting the boundary about the pig was hard. Harder than the church, because now we're talking about people in my house not happy with me.
Yeah.
But now I know a little bit different. So the way I look at it now is, what is your junk in that and what is mine? And I do this in business. I do it with my team. I do it with my spouse. I do it with my kids, my friends, because everybody comes carrying their own baggage of junk.
Yeah.
And when you can start to decide what is yours to hold and what is yours not to hold, it makes that a little bit easier. In marriage, we often, because we're together with our spouse a lot, we start feeling the things that they feel, right? And I would sometimes be feeling anxious and realize, wait, that's him. That's not even me. I wasn't anxious till he walked in the door, right? So I have to start separating the two. It goes back to knowing yourself pretty well, knowing who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, your identity and whose you are. But if you can start to say, you know what, the fact that they were unhappy with me leaving the ministry had to do with, I had always done it and that's the role they saw me in. But when I said no to that, they weren't really on Team Amy supporting me for the person who's saying she's overwhelmed, I'm drowning, and I'm not okay. Right? My part was, I'm not okay. And I'm still pushing through and doing this, which is not a service to them in the end anyway. Theirs was, they only saw me in that role and they couldn't see me in another. Does that make sense? And that goes into everything. Teaches a lot, especially in marriage. What's their junk to hold and what's mine?
Yeah, that's so good.
Powerful. So many insights, and I feel like you're really speaking to a lot of our audience, Amy. What's a place, like, if people want to follow you online, they want to get into your stuff, take that assessment, where can we send them?
The assessment's at thrivelifeinventory.com and then amywine.com.
All
Amy
right.
Winehouse, but Amy Wine. You have to type it in because I compete with her on Google.
Yeah.
But it's like the drink, amywine.com. Everything's on there. And then the assessment's Thrive Life Inventory.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today's episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. This was so good. Pulling from your real life examples of what you've walked through, and then also now how you're teaching others to be powerful, make powerful decisions, and stay connected to their families and build thriving businesses. So thanks, Amy, for being on today.
Thanks for having me. I enjoy it. Anytime. I help anytime.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. If you're not a part of our mastermind yet, I want to say I think you're missing out. Our heart here at Rainmakers is to create total abundance for you. That's why we're offering a free one-on-one family freedom design session for you, our faithful listener.
Yeah, if you want to hop on a call with our team, see if it's a good fit to build a business that creates time freedom for you, financial abundance, and helps you leave that thriving family legacy. That's what we're all about in our mastermind. You can grab a time on our team's calendar at rainmakerfamily.com/mastermind. Again, that's rainmakerfamily.com/mastermind.